You probably know Julius Caesar, the powerful general, warned to beware the Ides of March, surrounded by assassins, supposedly turning to his friend Brutus and saying, "Et tu, Brute." But here's the problem. The Caesar you know may not be the real Caesar at all. Shakespeare took a man who'd been dead for over 1,600 years and reshaped him into one of the most famous characters in English literature. So how much of what you know is history, and how much is simply Shakespeare? The real Julius Caesar wasn't a man quietly waiting to become king. He was a soldier, a general, a politician, and one of the most ambitious figures Rome ever produced. His brutal conquest of Gaul transformed him into a military powerhouse, his soldiers fiercely loyal, his victories making him wealthy and politically untouchable. By the time he returned to Italy, Rome had a genuine problem on its hands. The man coming home wasn't just another general. He had an army behind him and enormous political power to match. This is where Shakespeare's version gets genuinely interesting. In the play, Caesar's growing power terrifies the senators, who fear he wants to become king outright, and that fear fuels the entire conspiracy. Historically, it's more complicated, but not entirely wrong. Caesar really had accumulated extraordinary power, eventually becoming dictator for life, and Rome, having overthrown its own monarchy centuries earlier, genuinely feared what one man holding that much authority might mean. There's also the real episode during the festival of Lupercalia, when Mark Antony reportedly offered Caesar a crown, and Caesar publicly refused it. Shakespeare uses that single moment brilliantly, turning it into proof of a man who understands exactly how powerful he's become, while carefully performing humility for the crowd. Before we go further, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. But Shakespeare's Caesar isn't written as some unstoppable superhuman. He's strangely, deliberately vulnerable. He claims he fears nothing, insisting danger itself knows Caesar is more dangerous still. Yet moments later, we see physical weakness, ignored warnings, and a stubborn pride that borders on human fragility. Shakespeare wasn't attempting a perfect historical biography here. He was building a tragedy, and the real Caesar had to be reshaped into a dramatic character the audience could watch fall. Then come the warnings. A soothsayer tells Caesar to beware the Ides of March. His wife Calpurnia suffers disturbing dreams. Strange omens ripple through Rome. Real ancient sources genuinely describe omens and warnings surrounding Caesar's death. Shakespeare simply took that existing tradition and turned it into one of theater's most famous scenes, where the audience knows exactly what's coming, and Caesar himself simply refuses to believe it. Then comes March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March. Caesar enters the Senate. The conspirators close in, their plan quickly turning from politics into murder. Blade after blade strikes until finally Caesar falls. Shakespeare gives us the famous line, "Et tu, Brute." But here's the catch. We don't actually know Caesar said those words. Ancient sources disagree entirely on his final moments, and some suggest he may have said nothing at all. One of the most iconic lines in English literature may never have actually been spoken. Shakespeare also reshapes Brutus into a tragic idealist, a man who genuinely loves Rome, but believes killing Caesar is the only way to save it. That has real historical roots. Brutus truly was central to the conspiracy, but the actual political reality was far messier than good Republicans against one ambitious tyrant. Some conspirators feared Caesar's growing power, others held personal grudges, some had straightforward political disagreements. History rarely hands us characters as clean and singular in motive as Shakespeare gives us. Then comes one of Shakespeare's most famous scenes of all. Mark Antony stands over Caesar's body before a watching crowd, repeatedly calling Brutus and the conspirators honorable men, while slowly, deliberately turning that same crowd against them. Anger spreads, and Caesar's death becomes the spark for something far bigger, a civil war. The conspirators had killed Caesar hoping to save the Republic. Instead, they helped unleash the very struggle that would eventually destroy it. So what's the biggest difference between the real Caesar and Shakespeare's? It's not that Shakespeare invented him from nothing. He was working from real ancient sources, particularly Plutarch's biographies. But he compressed complicated history into sharp drama, personalities sharpened, speeches made unforgettable, coincidences made dramatic, uncertainty turned into tragedy. The real Caesar was messy and complicated. Shakespeare's Caesar is a character built specifically to make an audience feel something. If this changed the way you see the play, subscribe and share it. There's plenty more history worth untangling, and perhaps that's exactly why Shakespeare's Caesar survived. The real Julius Caesar died in 44 BC, his republic already collapsing, his death only accelerating the civil wars that eventually gave rise to Augustus and the Roman Empire. But Shakespeare's Caesar never really died at all. He's lived on in theaters, classrooms, books, and films, in the minds of people who've never read a single ancient Roman source. So the next time you hear "Beware the Ides of March," you're actually hearing two different stories at once. One belongs to ancient Rome, the other belongs to Shakespeare. And somewhere between the two lies the real difference between history and legend.